Welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, where we talk with martial arts practitioners about their histories and the influence that their practice of martial arts has on their lives. You are listening to the free version of this podcast, which is abbreviated. Help support this program by considering to subscribe to us on Patreon, where you will get 4 full-length podcasts each month, 1 week before the YouTube release date. The cost is that of about 1 coffee shop coffee per month. Go to www.patreon.com/malmag to subscribe. That is www.patreon.com/malmag. If you would like to purchase single full-length episodes of the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, visit our Gumroad page at malmag.gumroad.com, and that is malmag.gumroad.com. In this episode, I get on Zoom with Diem Nguyen, who's from Fayetteville, Arkansas, someone I know from the Inosanto instructor program, and she's got a lot of very interesting things to talk about. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, and today I've got a super dynamic lady that I met, I don't know how many years ago. It's always like, take your number and then add 2 because of COVID, I think. But it's been a few years. Anyway, she was fantastic. I remember meeting her at an instructor camp, and I think our personalities clicked, and just a lovely lady named Diem Nguyen, if I'm saying that properly. Doing my best. Yeah, okay, I got the okay symbol. That's awesome. And she's the head instructor and owner of Integrated Combat Systems in Arkansas. And so I've been looking forward to kind of getting her on here and talking with her, because I usually kind of catch up with her briefly here and there. So this will be kind of fun. I'll get to learn a little bit more about an old friend through this conversation. So Diem, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about, I guess, your school. Then we'll kind of go backwards into how you got into martial art. But let's start with kind of what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so I run a Kali JKD Thai boxing school in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And for any of the listeners out there, that's kind of where Guru McFan, the legendary Guru Mark McFan, had his roots out of. He had the academy out here for, several decades. And after he retired, I was starting up my backyard group, teaching FMA and whatnot. And after a while, there was just a void in the Northwest Arkansas area for, Kali, Silat, Jikendo, Muay Thai. And so I actually had a very deep conversation with Guru Cookie several years ago at my first instructor camp. And, I told her, I was like, really want to open up a school. I'm just afraid it's not the right time. I'm afraid that I'm not good enough. I'm afraid I don't know enough. And, Guru Cookie was the one that says, you'll never find the right time. You'll never find the right place. You just have to do it and let it grow with you. And you will grow with it. And I said, okay. So I came back to Fayetteville after my first instructor camp, and I just started looking on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace for places. And lo and behold, I was like, this is actually the perfect little starter spot. And within 3 months of talking to Guru Cookie, that's when I opened my very first location, teaching Kali, JKD, Muay Thai, and Silat.
That's great. Now, was that the camp that I met you at?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so after I met you is when you actually started this school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. You've done really amazing in that.
Thank you.
Very short span of time, actually.
Yeah, we're going to be on year 5 this year.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, I'm glad, Cookie's kind of got that ability to tell you the cold, hard truth, but positive spin within it. And I'm glad we're able to talk with her, and you got a bit of her very good advice that she dispenses and things. And I'm glad it worked out for you.
Yeah. I mean, literally she, like, within that conversation, I grew a pair, so quick. I'm like, all right, let's do this.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's great. So how many students do you have now?
I think we have between, I want to say 30 to 40 students amongst all of our different programs, because, we have some students that solely come for the Thai program. We have some students that come solely for the FMA Jikendo program. And so between those 2 programs alone, we have over 30 to 40 students.
Wow, that's actually
Yeah.
pretty. I'm familiar with Arkansas, obviously from a school and looking at a map perspective, and I've been through as a young kid many times, and my brother worked in Branson, Missouri for a few years and lived near the border of
Yeah.
Missouri and Arkansas at that time. So I'm not overly familiar with just how populated it is, though, and I'm thinking probably a lot of our listeners are. So, are you in an area that you have a lot of people, or are you?
Yeah, so I'm actually in the area where we're very densely populated. So there's two areas in Arkansas that are most densely populated. One is the Little Rock area, and then one is Northwest Arkansas. So Northwest Arkansas is where the home office of Walmart, Tyson Foods, JB Hunt. So we have all those corporations. And so we have a lot of people, coming in, working, establishing a residence here. And then we also have the University of Arkansas, and which it kind of started as solely a university town, but Walmart started here, the very first store, and then of course you have the home office and everything like that. And so and actually Northwest Arkansas has been like has been on the list of the top 5 places to live like the last decade. Um, and so so it's pretty heavily populated. Definitely not in comparison to like a major city by no means, like in LA or New York. But as far as for Arkansas goes, we are pretty densely populated.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that in your student base is pretty diverse then, as far as ages and all.
Yeah. So we've got a lot of adult, older professionals, like in the 30s, 40s, 50s. And then we have a lot of students like in the university as well. So it is very diverse, so including not only just ages but gender and like ethnicities and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. It's nice. I mean, we're in such an eclectic area of Arkansas that most people don't realize how eclectic and unique it actually is. So
Exactly. That's what I say. It's very educational for me to even get the answer from you, because I mean, I remember I think taking a trip to Hot Springs as part of something that we did when I was younger. And I was fascinated by the actual hot springs and all that part of it. And I remember it being quite pretty. And I also, like I said, just kind of know the border area up there from where my brother lives. And that was actually also quite pretty as far as like the that. He did tell me though, if I went too much farther south that I would smell chicken farms. So I guess that's
he isn't wrong. Yeah, it's a Tyson chicken. I mean, like, there's just, I mean, in Northwest Arkansas, I mean, if you start going to the, select outskirts, there's just so many chicken farms and chicken houses and things like that. And so, yeah, there are definitely select places in Northwest Arkansas when you're like right by a chicken plant.
That's amazing. Well, that's cool. And it's interesting that it's coming up as one of the better areas to live too, because I think it's probably something people don't generally think of. And well, that's great, and that's great that you're there and able to offer this type of martial art program, because we kind of think of I think we still think of what we do as a little exotic, maybe compared to mainstream, though it's probably more mainstream than what I think, but mainstream, I keep thinking of karate, taekwondo, this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's plenty of that around you as well. But it's probably, I think, an interesting place to think of being a decent center for Muay Thai and Kali and JKD.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to be, that place for, and again, like, totally going to repeat what you said, the exotic piece. It just seems we're always surrounded by, kickboxing, MMA, and BJJ gyms, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Those are amazing places to train
Right,
if that's what you want to do. But it's just so saturated with those academies and schools, to include taekwondo, karate, things like that. And so, I just felt like there was just at one point I was like, we've got to have a commercialized school, because people want this. People want to be able to. This needs to be in people's reaches, right? And like I said, and after Sifu McFan had retired, it was just really kind of out of people's reaches. There was no more kind of a hub or center for that type of training here in Northwest Arkansas. So I'm very glad to be part of that, and I'm glad to be able to provide that. to people here in this community.
Wow. So what are you originally from Arkansas? What brought you there?
Yeah, born and bred.
Oh man, that's interesting.
Yeah, no, my parents were refugees, Vietnam War. And so they came here to Arkansas. Um, and I can give you a whole other history lesson on that, but that's definitely another podcast.
Wow.
But
I gotta turn you on to someone that was my private student for a long time. Well, she still is, but she's been pretty busy of late working on a documentary about her family
oh,
in Vietnam after the
yeah.
war. And so it's a fascinating piece. And there's another young lady at the academy, same last name as you, which is why I had the secret knowledge of how to pronounce your name.
Of course.
So B at the academy, turns out that her and Joe, my private student, so Joe's brother and B were born in the same refugee camp in Indonesia. And so there was this connection. The families actually knew each other a bit. And I think the uncles had served in the military together or something. So it was really great, kind of an interesting introduction. And I know she's kind of been working pretty hard on this project, probably something you might be interested in.
I'd love that. That's awesome.
I can kind of remember those days. I'm old enough to remember the wave of immigration coming in from Vietnam after the war. I was fairly little, but I mean, I remember a lot of it between especially like 1975 and 1980. I remember that a lot. We had several kids come into our school system from Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. And yeah, it's interesting where everybody went. Well, I guess everybody went where they could get work.
Yeah, well, so for us, my family got to Arkansas because the military base, Fort Chaffee, is here. And so a lot of the Southern Vietnamese Army who were able to escape first, a lot of them came through and were housed in Fort Chaffee in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And so, and that, so a lot of my uncles and relatives were serving the military. When they able to escape, they put them in Fort Chaffee. And then the subsequent family members that came over later, they were like, well, where do you have family? Where are you going? And so majority of them says, I believe I have a second uncle in Fort Chaffee, Arkansas.
Oh, wow.
And so that's actually that's actually how a lot of the Vietnamese people, Laos, Cambodian, Thai, ended up in Arkansas, is through Fort Chaffee Connect.
Okay.
And so, and then, obviously then there's the other population where they're just dispersing out, finding work where they may. But I know for the Fort Chaffee, it was because of the military connection, like of previous family members having been housed there. So that's how we ended up there.
Wow. It's an amazing history. And it's something, if you're a listener and you're kind of interested in immigration and the way people came to the country, that whole era is just fascinating. And, you're starting to see second and third generation, even fourth generation people now from the group here. And it's really pretty neat. Really fascinating cultures anyway. So what got you into martial arts? I know you're, I was kind of looking at your website a little bit, and it says you're like almost 30 years, which I'm thinking, well, how's a 25-year-old lady only have 30 years of
Well, thank you so much, Tim, but I'm going to go ahead and disclose to the audience that I'm 40.
No way.
Yes.
Okay.
I am 40. I just turned 40, I think 2 months ago. I don't know.
Well,
I tried to
happy
not think
late
about it. So, but yeah, so I started doing martial arts when I was like 9 or 10. And I'm going to go ahead and throw out the stereotypical responses that I grew up watching Kung Fu flicks,
Okay. All right.
Watching Kung Fu flicks and then seeing half of my cousins that were, about 5 to 10 years older than me, all doing Kung Fu. And I'm like, man, that's the coolest thing, wearing that uniform and the Kung Fu sash and just kicking and stuff. And, so, so I begged my parents to take me to something since I was like 4 or 5. But, we were poor and, my parents worked like 2, 3 jobs, the typical refugee stuff, minimum wage. for 2, 3 jobs. So of course it was like, well, we can't do it yet. We can't do it yet. And then finally, I think by the time I was 10, we lucked out into this studio. It was a Goju-Ryu studio, and uh, the instructor was, just so nice and so sweet, and he wasn't doing it for the money. And he's like, I just want to teach Goju-Ryu, and so I'm pretty sure, I think it was $25 a month.
Wow.
Yeah. And
good
it
old
was
days.
the good old days. And it was the perfect amount that my mom could afford. And so that's when we started. So that's when I started doing martial arts, was Goju-Ryu, $25 a month. And that's what got me started.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
how much mine first cost too.
Yeah,
That
it's
was
crazy.
like 1981 or 82, I think. But
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. I think that's kind of expensive for 1981 or two.
Yeah, maybe so, I guess. But I paid for it with a paper route, so it wasn't too bad.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. So Goju-Ryu is where you started, and
Yeah.
how long did you train that?
So I did Goju-Ryu from the age of 10 up until 16. 16. So
6 years. That's a
uh
pretty good.
yeah. So I went all the way, got my first Dan in Goju-Ryu. So I was very happy with that. That was it, I did a lot of different things. Martial arts is just one of those things that just really stuck with me. And then when I was 16, I started doing, like, high school sports and stuff like that too, and started playing soccer. Well, I excelled really well at it. The martial arts helped me with coordination, speed, and all that stuff. But um, I got into an accident during one of the games, and I broke my ankle, um, and took a hiatus for about 2 years, until I went to college before I started doing any martial arts training again. So it was a lot of mental and emotional and physical healing that came in from that, because during my recovery process, I was close to getting gangrene on my ankle, actually. Um, and so after we dealt with the gangrene and all that stuff, um, I had lost basically 90% of mobility in my right ankle. Um, and so I couldn't run, I couldn't do sports, I couldn't play basketball, I couldn't do anything. So basically, I was in a very dark mental state for about a year.
That would be very depressing, I think, to anyone
Oh,
who's used to a lot of physical activity. And I've
yeah.
unfortunately, with people in the past that I've known, and we've had some that have pulled through it, and others unfortunately not. But
Mhm.
I understand. That's really
Yeah.
hard.
So I was fighting through a very difficult time period as I was entering into college, and um it was one of those, I forget what they call it, but it's one of those things where, like, before you go to college, it's like there's a day you come check out the campus, see all the clubs and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, like rush
But
week and that stuff. Yeah.
yeah, so I went. It was a community college, and so I went on campus, check out the clubs, and then I saw this sign, it says martial arts club, and I was like, oh, what is this?
Ta-da!
And I know, right? So I walked over to it, and guys wearing a gi and wearing black belt. I'm like, okay, let's go talk to this guy. And I was like, I did Goju-Ryu back in the day, broke my ankle, blah blah. I just really don't know how much I can do anymore. And he's like, well, don't worry, we teach Okinawan Kempo. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what that is. Me, I'm very ignorant to a lot of this stuff
Mhm.
at that time. And he's like, well, we do Kempo. So it's a lot of, like, stuff with your hands, and we don't kick to the head unless they're already on the ground type of mentality. And I'm like, so you think I can do this, huh? And he's like, yeah, just come check us out. And so I went, and to the first martial arts club meeting or whatnot, and he did an introduction of what they do, and different people from different backgrounds came there and attended, and that's actually how I got back into martial arts, was through that Kempo system at the college.
Wow. That's cool. And that's like the Ryukyu Kempo stuff.
Yes. Riku Kempo, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that one of my, he was an assistant instructor where I studied at as a kid, and it was a Sharnroos. And I remember he was a bus driver for a living, and he ended up getting in an accident or something, and also messed up either his ankle or his knee or something to that effect. And hard for him to kick. And he ended up getting hooked up into that as well.
Oh,
same kind of deal. And
that's actually really neat.
Yeah, very interesting guy. I remember we because our school had moved several times, and the head instructor stayed, and some of the other guys had left and gone to different ways and what have you. Bumped into me and my good buddy that got me into karate. Bumped into this guy, Peter Ryan was his name, and we bumped into him like at some health club or something, like a Nautilus, club back in the day. And we were just kind of catching up with him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, well let me show you." He said, "Here, if you remember this from the kata." He's like, "Here's the Kempo translation of it," and it was really cool. And he's just tossing us around like rag dolls. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, no, my instructor, Tommy Wagner, that was his name. Rest in peace. I tried to look him up several years ago and found out he had passed away. So that was very sad for me. But so Sensei Wagner, I'm so lucky. I think the universe just provides, right? I think the universe just provides to you what it believes you need. And I solely believe with how I stumbled across Kempo with Sensei Wagner. He actually introduced me to the Okinawan trapping, and so I thought that was really cool, like the hinging motions of the arms and the trapping hands. And he actually broke down like the katas into bunkais for me, and it was just the coolest thing ever, right? Because you don't get that a lot of times anymore in like a lot of the karate dojos, right? They teach you the forms, they don't teach you the bunkais to it, and so you have no idea what you're doing. You're just mimicking movements, right?
Right.
But what was remarkable about Sensei Wagner, though, is he never spoke more highly of his system than anyone else's. He always says, "You know what, man, if you think this is cool, you should, check out Muay Thai because their kicks are phenomenal." Or, "Hey, if you like this, you should check out, Kali or Eskrima because their weapon stuff is phenomenal." And it was actually through him that piqued my interest in those other said styles. It's like, oh, Muay Thai, okay. Oh, sticks. Oh, so that Kali Eskrima. Okay, cool. Again, I'm still very new at all this still. I haven't developed the whole research side of my brain yet as far as martial art development. But because he mentioned those terms, it always stuck in my head, because he was, one of my original instructors. And so as I transitioned from community college to the university, obviously I moved away. It was only a few hours difference, but still moved away. And when I came to Fayetteville, that's when I actually started training in Silat, Eskrima, and FMA through a gentleman named Richard Clary. And he was actually, I believe, Guru McFadden's old student and training partner as well back in the 80s and 90s. They kind of went two separate directions. Guru McFadden.
And this concludes the abbreviated version of the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast. Please click the like and subscribe buttons as well as the notification bell. Also consider subscribing to the full-length podcast at www.patreon.com/malmag or purchasing individual full-length episodes at malmag.gumroad.com. Thank you for listening to this episode with Diem Nguyen. Coming up next week, we have an MKG legend, Diana Rathborn. Check out the Malmag store at www.martialartslifestylemagazine.com and click on the store tab. There, you will find a full selection of Timmy B's brand sticks for FMA and Krabi Krabong, as well as Timmy B's and Dos Manos t-shirts. Many more products coming soon. Also click on our courses tab to purchase online courses, right now featuring a course in the Dos Manos stick of FMA. More courses to come. This show is produced by Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine. Visit us at www.martialartslifestylemagazine.com and enjoy the free version of our online magazine with articles, a recommended schools page, and a worldwide events calendar. Music by Jackal Relic. Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine and the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast are trademarked and copyrighted by TNT LLC.